Thanks again for joining us on the program TMI Thursday. We go straight to the heart of our discussion segment. Exactly a month and 2 days today that President Muhammadu Buhari refused to assent to the electoral bill sent to him by the National Assembly. But as we speak, the Senate specifically has rescinded its decision by removing the controversial clause that was the subject of discourse between the office of Mr. President and the National Assembly. Mr. President has rejected the bill on the grounds that it doesn't support democracy on the one hand and over insecurity issues. But just yesterday or so, the Senate rescinded that decision and reworked the bill and included direct, indirect, and consensus in the mode of primaries for political parties. But on the other hand, the House of Representatives feel differently. They've also acted on the bill approving direct and indirect primaries as a mode for political parties to determine their candidates. We'll look at how all of these issues will pan out in the days to come. I'm joined now by Engineer Esosa Omogwe. Engineer Esosa Omogwe is a politician and a public affairs commentator. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Sonny. Thank you for having me. Thank you, viewers all over the world. Thank you for joining us.
Let me also welcome Comrade Christopher Ojekere, who is the Programs Officer, Foundation for Good Governance and Social Change. Chris, thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Comrade Shadrach Dubai is a civil society activist. Thank you again for being a part of this discussion.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we made effort to bring these guys together because we talked extensively at the beginning when this whole issue started. Now we've gotten here, we just thought it would be wise to bring them on board and ventilate their views as to some of the predictions that they made, if those predictions came to pass or not. So, Engineer Omoegbe, let me begin with you. We're here now. I know you were of the view that this was how it was going to pan out ultimately, but are you satisfied with what is coming out so far on the part of the Senate and the House of Representatives?
Well, I've always been in support of plurality of mode of primaries. I've never been in support of one mode of primaries for political parties to determine their candidates. I believe, and I'm convinced, that with this plurality of mode of primaries, if we insert it into the Constitution, it will be good for our polity, it will be good for our politics. At the end of the day, our politics will be more robust, and I'm very convinced that everybody will now be carried along. Okay. And this will diffuse the tension that was building up before this time.
All right, Chris, yeah. Let's look at where we are now. Can we comfortably say that the onus is now on Mr. President to do the needful as far as the electoral bill is concerned?
Yes, it is, because the Senate has rescinded its earlier decision, and that itself shows that the Senate is willing, to accept divergent opinions, because mode of primaries, whichever mode you chose, as I said the last time we were here, processes are operated by people. It is how you operate a process. All modes can produce genuine candidates if they are allowed to have democratic reigns and tenets. So the onus is on the president, but I want to give it to Yakubu, the INEC chairman, who made it very clear to the political class that you don't run an election on nothing. There has to be a legal framework, and the legal framework for INEC's operation is the Electoral Act. That's the democratic and legal instrument that issues from the Act of the National Assembly with which elections are conducted. And he had told them, until you resolve that, INEC is not going to come out with a timetable. INEC is not going to come out with a timetable. So the political class were woken up to realize that you have timelines for elections, and you are going to cause a constitutional crisis if you do not quickly do the needful so that those timelines are met. So the president himself would have realized this. I'm sure once he gets to his table now, the president will have no problem but to accept.
Shada, do you feel this way? Do you anticipate this happening?
Yes. To a very large extent, I'm petrified and disturbed. Because I've looked very critically on the issue at hand. The idea of having a rebranded electoral amendment, electoral be put into law, be enacted. Because there are timelines for all of these arrangements. Even the bill itself seeks to readdress the idea of timelines. The idea of 180 days, the limit of which to be 150 days for the submission of candidates that will be in election has been expanded to 180 days. The idea of campaigning for 90 days before election has been expanded to 150. So these are destructive changes that needs to be emphatically implemented. We need to know if we are running with the old law or the current law. And there's the issue of timing coming up here. Because beyond the Nigerian nation, there's also the West Africa, the ECOWAS protocol on elections. There's also the African Charter on Democracy and Government, which clearly stipulates that electoral laws must be concluded and enacted at least a year before election. And yet we are playing with the issue of timing. Some places have been coming up and proposed all manner of philosophy that this electoral act has what they call the apical spirit of the Nigerian electoral act. Whereby it keeps behaving as that kind of budget. Because this to me is the fourth time they are giving a president of the Nigerian Federal Republic of Nigeria to sign a bill, electoral amendment into law, and yet he sends it back to the House of Assembly. So people are beginning to wonder what exactly is happening to this electoral bill. Because this bill for the first time has all of this a people-oriented bill. It has all of the inputs, all of the instrumentalities that will empower the Nigerian people to fall back into the rank and file of democracy and hold the process to ransom and see how best they can use the instrumentalities of power both to vote and also to be voted for. So it is an end of capacity. It will really engender trust. So the idea of not wanting to throw away the some people have alleged that they know the disposition of President Muhammadu Buhari. That this could just be an attempt to throw a spanner into the engine and see the thing comes crashing down. Okay. Because there will be a timeline to get to. It will be practically not feasible as it happened before to put these laws into action. And if they don't do it before the end of this January, we'll be having a really critical issue at hand to grapple with. Okay. And that's why we are appealing that they need to expedite action. Yes, they are back, and that happens to be the front-burning issue. And they themselves are saying, okay, if it is the issue of primary and indirect, let us go beyond that. Both methods could be put in the constitution, both methods can be practiced, both methods can be developed. But be by and large, those other essential goodies of this bill must be brought to light, and it must see the light of day in this forthcoming elections.
Okay, there's a semi-dichotomy on the position of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Some civil society are already criticizing the Senate for including consensus. Is this healthy?
I'll repeat that having a different mode of primaries, be it direct, be it indirect, be it consensus, is very much healthy and good for the polity and politics of Nigeria. It gives you option. The variety in the whole process is what Nigeria should applaud. However, my fear is this, like my comrade brother said, Shadrach, the abiku spirit that has been following, that has been trailing and following this electoral amendment bill. We pray, and this is I'm convinced that this may be the position of many Nigerians, that we don't have another political gerrymandering, another political somersault, another political gyration, another political maneuver, that evil kind of Maradonic-esque kind of trickly and slippery that will truncate this whole process. What Nigerians are clamoring for is very simple. Give us a law that will give us a free and fair election. I don't think that is too much to ask for. You know, like rightly pointed out, some time ago when when some amendments were proposed and sent to Mr. President, his excuse was timing. You know, we are afraid that we may be going there once again. The general election is supposed to take place February or March in 2020.
Next year.
Yeah, next year. Yeah. So we are already there. We just have a short time. By the time these people, the National Assembly will come together, debate for some time. We don't know how long they are going to debate. Maybe they will expedite action on it. Okay. Thank God they already have a position. However, with the differences in the position of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Yeah. That means there have to be harmonization.
Of course.
You know, that harmonization may take time. We don't know what position they are likely going to take. Do not send it to Mr. President. We don't know if Mr. President is going to see another, you know, another loophole or see what he doesn't like again. All we are asking for, all Nigerians are asking for, give us a law that will guarantee free and fair election.
Okay, what is the worst case scenario in all of this, Chris?
The worst case scenario is that we go back to status quo ante. that's the worst case scenario. And that's why I'm not worried about whatever it is. The status quo ante has been that political parties had the options of using either of these three. The consensus mode, direct or indirect primary. It was to be an amendment. The direct primary was to be an amendment, a kind of improvement on the system, as some people thought. Now, if we are not going to reach an agreement and we run out of the timelines, then the worst case scenario that will return back to status quo ante, it is the Electoral Act before the proposed amendment that will now function in the 2023 election. Now, the point is, why do we have this kind of gerrymandering, as he said? It's because, as it is suspected, which we are beginning to accept now, as you know, the more that meets our eyes that is beginning to now meet our eyes properly, is the fact that you have political blocks, power blocks, especially power blocks that are interested in the presidency, who consider particular modes of primary favorable to their own ambition. And we are beginning to see from the actors on both sides where these power blocks are and who these power blocks are, because these people in the National Assembly, we know their antecedents and we know their history. We know, for instance, that Bajabia Mila has sentiments towards one political aspirant, and we also know that Lawal is also being accused of being, you know, too sentimental towards, you know, the presidential sentiments. So the point now, I can see that you are having discordant tone from the National Assembly to the Senate. It tells you that it might not really be the overall interest of the Nigerian democratic process that was the original intention.
Okay.
Because if not, as I said, it's men that run processes. If we agree to say, okay, let's leave it at consensus level, because you see, every situation is not the same everywhere. And that is why you have plurality of choices. So that if this particular situation is not conducive, if you have one of these smaller parties, we're only thinking of APC and PDP. Now, these smaller parties that don't have money to run, you know, certain forms of primaries,
yeah.
And we have registered them. Once we have registered them, we are duty-bound, we are obliged to allow them function democratically. And consensus might just be good for them because it's easier and it's cheaper. So you allow such plurality so that they'll also be within the law, within the ambit of the law in their processes and in their practices. So the point is, once what you are to pursue in any election is that an election is free, is fair, is transparent, and it's equitable. That is what you pursue in any election, whatever process you are using. It is not the same process you use in China that you use in, not the process you use in Britain, that you use in America. But, I mean, we have free and fair elections there, at least by international observation. Now, American system is presidential, British is parliamentary. But if the people are determined to have a true process and a fair process because of the interests of the country at heart, then they are going to run that system and to produce results. So if we have this kind of system of primaries, and we say, look, let us run it properly. If we run it properly, we'll get results. And the results we are going to get is that we throw up credible candidates that are acceptable to the people because they were choices, they were products of the people's choices. So the point we are making here is, if they do not reach a consensus, I have no problem at all. We just go back to status quo ante. But if they do reach a consensus, which we are hoping that they reach, they would have brought a lot of improvement into the process. Now, and that would have also meant that we're having more harmony, you know, among members of the federal legislation.
Okay.
And legislature.
Shadrach has been shaking his head, tapping his feet, and doing all kinds. So I could just sense that. Yeah.
First of all, I have an issue with consensus as a politician. Because even the party constitution stipulates that it is when the people unanimously resolve there is a certain candidate to fly, that is when consensus should be a mode. If there is any fraction, any dissenting opinion, they have to resort to either direct or indirect primaries. But what we say in Nigerian democracy has been, there are numerous examples. Is after they go for consensus, there are some factors say no, this is not the consensus candidate, and they will go as far as protesting both to national televisions, and yet they don't revert their decision to pay that bills, either the bill to make more of. They also want to appeal with all sense of civility. Please, I don't want to go back to status quo. I will see the promised land because I have taken time to really look at the move because it's far beyond transmission of electronic transmission of results. It's far beyond direct and indirect ones. This proposed amendment is the amendment that seeks to address the issue of accredited voters. It redefines what an accredited voter is. In time past, we'll go for elections and perhaps they come out with, they say they score 5,000 persons voted in this election. Accredited voters, 3,000. I mean to wonder where that 1,000 vote came from. And because it's not enshrined in the Nigerian law, it's not illegal, there's no legal instrument to disqualify votes of Nigerians on the basis of accreditation, those votes are allowed to fly. So the idea of just waking up one morning, as long as you have the capacity to stuff the vote into the ballot box, it becomes a legitimate vote. Now they have redefined that. They said no. Going forward, when the accredited voters and the vote card does not marry, there's now a need for us to review. We saw what happened in Imo State, where Hope Uzodinma became governor. When you add the vote the court, the Supreme Court said he had, add you the one had, add you the one Uche also had, which is like far above the accredited voters that participated in the whole election. But yet they could not nullify that. We said that was a law because accredited voters is not a tool, a yardstick for validity of votes in Nigeria. That it addresses it. This same amendment, proposed amendment B, addresses the issue of the people with disabilities. What the extant law says is that INEC may offer help and support to persons with disability to ensure that their interest is conspicuously captured. But now the one the people say INEC shall. That is to say, nobody will be left behind. All interest must be carried in totality as we move forward. There's also the issue of somebody dying before, the candidate dying before results have been called.
Like it happened in Kogi State.
Kogi State in 2015 by Uju.
Yeah.
They now said that if such a thing happens, candidate die, the next elect does not logical comes up to pick. They have to go back to the party and do a primary. That is to say, you cannot just wake up one morning because you believe you have the muscle to smoke the life out of somebody, you go in for it, you kill the person and you say your candidate will make. It's no longer feasible again. Those are the irregularities. We also the issue of financing. INEC has also taken a position to see how they can ensure independence in finances, strengthening the instrumentality of finances within the party. To say that party funds for general election must be released at least a year before the election. That is also when they have these resources, they will be able to do adequate planning and feasibility, provision of logistics, to ensure that we have a very harmonious and smooth sailing process. All of these ones are contained. We see the issue of misinterpretation. That card carrying members of political parties, when you now go and you now misrepresent, and you go into political parties and you lie and say they are not affiliated with political parties, and you go and work either as ad hoc staff, APO, PO, SPO, in INEC election, in intent and purpose to internally distort the election, it's not a criminal offence. You are liable to a charge of 5 million naira fine or a minimum of 2 years imprisonment, or both of them. So all of these things, we solve the issue of misrepresentation. There are other issues of timeline, as regards when INEC is supposed to bring candidates, affiliate candidates. All of these things, to a large extent, we help redefine and re-harmonize the Nigerian electoral process. Because the Nigerian electoral process is a base, is a precursor for the dividends of democracy. People are totally disenchanted with the way and manner we're running. We run elections. We see some of the irregularities, we see some of the faults. Why not come back and say, these are the problems we have, these are the lacunas. Let us harmonize and show up our the trust, and let's move forward. No, what we are saying is that some people deliberately want to hold us down to ransom because they believe that this current law will play to their strategy. The tools of which they have used in time past in the training, they said they will continue using it to whip Nigerians to order.
Okay.
I'm even worried because some persons have come up and said, even this current bill they are proposing, there are some irregularities. There are some
some lacunas.
Yes. Yeah. I think Young Africa came out on national TV and spotted it by 11. I said these are cross-referencing issues. They need to also address it. So that when you give this law to Buhari, it does not cite a new one. So because we are not willing and ready to go back to the Israel, I haven't seen the.
All right, let me just.
Let me rest this fear.
Yeah.
And let me tell you how laws.
As
How laws are passed. Now, there's only one point of contention.
Consensus.
Yeah, contention.
Okay.
Between the reps and the Senate.
Yeah.
And that's the direct and indirect. All these other points, they're in consensus. So the only thing you do is you expunge that point. And when it's going to vary about 3 or 4 times now, it's only that point. So we're not going to throw away the entire bill, just because of that point. So that's why you ask what could be the worst case scenario. That particular amendment will not be done. All the other clauses are passed. You pass bills clause by clause.
The clause has, I think it's been the clause 84.
Which is
that
exactly
yes,
that particular one. That has been the only point.
Exactly what I wanted to read on this. It says it also approved the recommended clause 84 subsection 3, that a political party that adopts the direct primary procedure shall ensure that all aspirants are given equal opportunity of being voted for by members of the party. Is this possible? Equal opportunity.
Well, it is very possible.
Or is this just on paper?
Let's be realistic. I think we are over-legislating in this country. The British constitution is an unwritten constitution, yet the system is working properly. The truth of the matter is that some of these clauses are inserted into this amendment bill to satisfy and massage the ego of some certain political entities. That is what is actually playing at, not the overall interest of Nigerians. For instance, in America democracy that we tend to be copying, if a senator dies or the seat becomes vacant, the onus is on the governor to liaise with the people to nominate somebody to replace. You don't have to go back to the trenches of primaries and conducting all of those things. Now, if a candidate dies, during or before the election, in the democracy that we are following, the next in line, that's why it's a joint ticket. For instance, if it's a presidential or election, the vice who is on a joint ticket with him, automatically takes over. That was why when President Obasanjo and Vice President Atiku then, when they had issues, the seat of Vice President Atiku couldn't be declared vacant, even when Vice President Atiku had moved to another political party. The Supreme Court, in their wisdom, interpreted that it is a joint ticket and it cannot be separated midway. So what I'm trying to say is that all these issues have already, one way or the other, except if we don't want to sabotage the system, one way or the other, all of these issues have been taken care of. And the earlier we stop over legislating on issues, inserting everything into the constitution, the better for us. For instance, the American Constitution has been amended over 200 years 200 something years of democracy, just about 13 times. And our electoral bill, in a democracy of less than 25 years, we are amending how many times, not to talk of the constitution. So we are over-legislating, on all of these issues. If we are law-abiding, if we don't want to sabotage the system, we know what to do. And I believe that this is the right time. I don't think after this process, I don't want this process to go to waste. I don't want this process to end up like the others have done. If we follow through this process, I think we are strengthening our democracy.
Okay, so in a sense, INEC apparently is taking a position on this matter. Do you think INEC is justified to sustain that position in all of this?
The constitution of election, apart from the ground non-constitution of the country, the constitution of election, the Electoral Act, INEC itself derives its powers from the Electoral Act. So if you don't have an Electoral Act in place, if there is a suspended Electoral Act where you don't know whether you are relying on the status quo, the previous one, which is the status quo ante, or the amended one, which is yet to be amended, INEC is not going to do anything. Because whatever INEC does in the process would have been null and void, because they will act in the vacuum. So the INEC chairman is saying, look, governance does not recognize a vacuum. There has to be a subsisting law.
Exactly.
Upon which we draw up our timetable. And INEC is going to sustain that. And the political classes are aware. If you, by act of commission, distort the timelines of an election, it borders, I'm not a lawyer, but you are going very close to treason. It's like a coup. If you, by acts of commission, you deliberately distort timelines of elections and timelines of swearing in of elected candidates, it borders on treason. So nobody is going to deliberately throw us into a crisis of such nature or deliberately commits acts that would distort the election cycle. The election cycle is almost sacrosanct.
Yeah.
So what you can do is to amend or adjust within the timelines. So if you have 180 days, for instance, and you have an extra 2 weeks, you say, okay, we are beginning from the end of that 2 weeks. It gives us the 180 days ambit. That's what you do. So INEC is going to insist on this, and that is what would happen. Now, coming back to processes, because you refer to processes, and they reinforce what I said, that it is men that run processes. Yes. The direct primary, which I know that Shedrack is very passionate about, was what was used in these states under the governor in 2012. And it was very well advertised that in the choice of candidates for that year, it was going to be by direct primaries. And I was a full participant in that election because I was campaign manager and I don't know to a senatorial candidate. I tell you, we saw direct primaries. the officials arrived on 1 West around 6 o'clock in the evening.
6 p.m.
Yes.
On the day,
yes.
On the day of the primary.
That primary still held.
No, I need you to rewind. I need you to rewind. Please rewind.
I think that's when I formed my opinion. That
no, I need you to rewind.
I will.
Yes.
That's when I formed my opinion, because that's the point I want to make. I don't want to lose it. That processes are run by people. It was option 8 direct primary. We were so happy. I thought, oh, this was a new experience. And I tell you, the turnout was massive.
Massive.
I was running from pillar to post. I was a donut senatorial campaign manager for a senatorial aspirant. I had my car. I was running from pillar to post. From polling unit to polling unit, people were waiting. The expectation was high. I wrote an article on this, about 4 pages. Officials arrived, and when they were coming, unfortunately, from Benin here, they have expunged the name of my candidates.
As one of the list. As one of the contestants.
Yes, as one of the contestants. It was the next day he came here to try and resolve the primaries was already the results were already there. So once we have not made up our mind that we want to run a democracy, and then imbibe that culture of allowing equity, fair play, and transparency, whatever mode we put in place, men are planning how to distort it. Now, exactly. you can't hold them responsible that they didn't do a primary. Logistic problem, car broke down the road. What are you going to say to that?
Fantastic.
You know the results that come out from 6 o'clock in the evening.
Before Shedrack takes the floor, let me just buttress what our senior comrade has just said.
Yeah.
Now, there are advantages in all of the mode of primaries.
As well as disadvantages.
And there are disadvantages. Let me take the consensus that Shedrack is very much against, for instance. It was by national consensus that we were able to come about this Fourth Republic. Take, for instance, Nigerians agreed, the stakeholders agreed that if we are going to have a peaceful nation, let us cede this presidential contest to the West. That was by national consensus. Everybody came together and said, this must be it. And that was why the contest was between former President Olusegun Obasanjo and the Afenifere chieftain Olufalai. So
both of them from the West?
From the West, by national consensus. The Buhari, President Muhammad Buhari, who is now against direct primaries, by the second second election, the primary was by direct primaries. So like the
50 million votes.
Exactly.
So we benefit from the system, but we don't want the system to thrive.
Exactly. So that is the issue. Just like I've said, if we don't want to sabotage the system, if we don't want to massage the ego of somebody, I believe we have enabling laws that will be able to guide us. So,
I wanted to raise this point while Chris was talking. The worst case scenario is that we revert to
the existing law.
Exactly. In INEC's preparation so far, because whether we like it or not, INEC has been preparing for the 2023 election. which law are they operating on in that preparation?
The existing law.
So in line with that, they could go ahead and also release the timetable, which in my opinion could put pressure on the stakeholders that are delaying, allowing the Abiku spirit to continue to run rampage in this whole amendment process.
Could I
yes, please do.
They cannot, because there's a process going on. It's a law-making process.
Yeah.
They are aware of it. So they will be acting in conflict with that process. They don't want to be seen to be so.
Doing that.
They want to be law-abiding citizens. If that law was not in review, the INEC would have done the next.
Yeah.
But the law is in review.
Yeah.
So they have to wait for it. But there are timelines.
That's exactly what
INEC is
exactly
not
the point.
against the timeline.
Yes.
Once it gets to a particular time and you have not resolved your issue, INEC now operates on the existing. They are not covered by law to operate on the existing law.
So if the law now eventually comes up,
yes,
maybe all those operations could be upturned. But let me get Shedrack to take his turn. To take his turn. Yeah.
Let me start with the issue, first of all, the issue of consensus. My brother quickly cross-referenced. Consensus is in as much as zoning or rotation, as the principle of power sharing is not enshrined in our constitution. I strongly believe that for even development and for everybody to have a sense of belonging, power must move.
yes.
And the idea of where power should go to is purely by consensus. There should be a logical reason around it. So the idea of saying power should go is purely by consensus. You sit down and just say, there should power go. When choosing who amongst this group becomes always about, I think there should be some form of civility called democratic parties around it that borders on direct and indirect. Going to the issue of direct and indirect, I have said it before that both systems are legitimate, both are democratic, and both have the capacity of bringing out legitimate candidate that has the capacity of giving out, that brings the dividend, bring home the dividends of good governance. But I have studied the Nigerian democracy. There are peculiarities in it. And I have come to say that even INEC as it operates today, I will tell you that INEC might have been failing in the past, but they are failing forward. I knew where we started from when I started getting elections. It was the idea of you being in the polling units, casting your votes, but the results are being written in government houses. Before you say jack by 2 o'clock, the results are in the vehicle and they are going to Abuja. While you are thinking that, hey, APC don't win for my unit too, they are announcing PDP at the Abuja. And that was where we started from. Before they now went to the one that said, we have to rise to the occasion. We can no longer continue like this. They now have to give maximum security to the electoral materials, be put in the central bank of every state. The proposals moved. They now said that we can no longer be printing and reprinting fake papers, sending fake ones to the. That's okay, let us evolve. They now evolve to the area of when they will just go to the polling units and they just should go. Everybody will they snatch the ballot box, bam, that unit is cancelled. They will stop. They now evolve to that level. They now discover people now rose up the question. See if this is the because person that will snatch in this unit is person in this area. Yeah. So you now discover that they have to man the process. When you snatch with the help of social media, they will name you, call
shame you,
shame you there.
Yeah.
And they have the capacity. So people now run away from snatching valuables. It's no longer correct occurrence in the end. They now evolve to vote buying. That's how they have been but you see that some sense of sanity has been installed. Why I said the issue of direct and indirect, they should pick one because it's the same level. If they are saying direct, so they went direct, they see that when they throw you direct and it scuttles you, before you grapple your feet, they bring you direct and scuttle you again. Before when they see that the direct you are become wise in direct and you set up some instrumentality in ensuring sanity in the process.
The switch over.
So that constant changes usurps the Nigerian process from gaining sanity. That's why I said if we stick to direct, there are irregularities, but the people consistently over the years we rise to the occasion and meet up with the demands. Just as we've done with election. So that's why I said, okay, when we pick direct, the other issue is this. I'm a young man and I've been advocating for young persons' inclusiveness in politics. Go into politics. See how best you can use instrumentalities available to you. As you got the office of the citizen of the federal, the highest office in the land, you can use those instruments to bring home the dividends of democracy. Yeah. Because politics is a superstructure. Forget about economics. All of that things are built upon it. So if you're able to get the politics right, we're able to get the leadership right, we don't have issues with all of these things that have been disturbing us in this country. So how they will not go to PDP, for example, and they collect party card. And they go attending ward meeting. And then I say, there's this young guy who comes to our ward. He's very sound. He has the capacity. He's very intelligent. And this guy can really bring home. This guy can function as assembly members. And they say election is coming. And that guy who has been in the party attending meeting for the past 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, does not have a say in who becomes as simple as Cancelo. does not have a say on who will become councillor in local government, because a group of persons have been chosen to choose on behalf of that individual who is an active member of that party. I believe that one in itself is an error. It discourages participation.
Okay.
The mode of people canvassing for votes when people want to run, I want to run out for state of assembly. What is the purpose? Is that I go to my local government and my wards, I introduce myself conspicuously to the people. But because I have this inclination, there's not going to be a direct primary, so it's going to be indirect to.
So you go after you go to the leaders.
It is the SSC of the governors, the commissioners, the House of Rep members. Those are the stakeholders, the real men of the party who hold the leaders and masters who have considered themselves as principalities within the political bloc. They are the ones who will be choosing who will go and vote. So the politics start changes. When I go to the local government, I want to see the ward ESCO. I want to see the local government ESCO. I want to see the former this and the former that. Those are the people, and those are the ones who will not be making demands on you. Those are not be telling you we have somebody we want to bring.
But since you have come now,
what can you
want
do?
to consider you.
So all of those issues, so I was happy. Not because direct is most, but I believe that if they have chosen one method and they have stuck to it, over the years would have evolved.
Okay, let's quickly conclude with this. In all of this, what is very clear is that there's the need for a rebirth, a national rebirth, to engender a new disposition to how things are done. Some time ago, we heard about the third force. It died even before it started. Today, again, I'm beginning to hear of the People's Alternative Movement. Let's just engage ourselves on this. I'd like to start with you, Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, Chris.
Chris. I've been a member of both.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Yes. The third first was, in the name, National Intervention Movement. It was started by Olisa Agbakoba and Abdul Jalil Tafawa Balewa, the son of the late Prime Minister. And, you know, it had so much promise. Comrade Austin Sakwe, my boss, was the state chairman. I was the deputy state chairman for Edo State. And we were given such lofty value system, political value system, that they had evolved. With respect to evolvement of a system, it was perfect. But with respect to implementation, it was the worst implemented policy and program and strategy and idea I've ever met. And that's the problem we have with the country. Now, the first meeting we had in Abuja, the national legal advisor was Dr. Sergio Baiwan. He single-handedly wrote that constitution. Even right on the stage to present that constitution, we could see that people were not interested in the ground norm that was going to be the
working document,
upon which that intervention was going to stand on. You see that they were not interested. The place was so shabbily organized that when we got back to Benin, we immediately got together and put forward a very, telling letter on what we have observed, and that's how it turned out to be.
So you people initiated the crash.
They threw up so many names. I remember that the Buba Galadima was one of the speakers then, and that was when he told us that he was going to go against Buhari, which consistently he did. Now, they threw up so many names, but by the time we got to Abuja, we hardly saw anybody. In fact, Patutomi spoke to us via Sky. The man himself, Olisa Agbakoba, could not come until towards the
end of the program.
And so, later, we started to see romances with different parties. What's her name? Obviously, became presidential candidate to ACPN and so on and so forth. They were talking of merging with this party and merging with that party. And at the end of the day, many unpalatable things came out. Now, let me tell you what's
new now.
Yes, what the implication of all of that was. It was a moment of harnessing the elite outside the political class, who were politically conscious, revolutionary, and progressive. It was a moment in history, an epoch that was mismanaged. Because having been able to make contact with all of these people, and all were in agreement that that was a good idea, all they needed was organization. Coming together would have had a real third force political party today with fresh names. Now, how many years later, 8 years later, we are throwing up the same names that the third force said had expired at that time. That's the same names that we are throwing up now for presidential candidates. Now, what you find in the People's Alternative Movement is not a political party. It is a coalition of labor civil society movements to resist hardship that is being proposed. And I understand that NEC has now proposed 202 naira per liter of fuel. Now, we had already seen where the handwriting on the wall was writing to by Buhari's statements. So we thought we should be proactive. So Labour and the coalition of citizens across the country have put up a very strong coalition to resist hardship. And that is the movement that is titled the
People's Alternative
Political Movement.
Okay.
Depending on whether you want to put all of them. Now, it is a movement, it's a consciousness that Nigerians are now tired of hardship and want to resist hardship and resist whatever forces and whoever is visiting that hardship on the Nigerian people through legitimate and democratic means. But we are not just stopping at resistance. We have come up with alternative, answers to all of the issues they have raised, for which they have come up with very negative policies. We have come up with an alternative policy plan, which we shall be making and presenting to the 36 state governor on the 27th of January. And then we are going to come out nationally on 1st of February on the streets of Nigeria to say that we are tired of hardship.
So this is about hardship?
Yeah, this is about hardship. That the people
for now.
It is about hardship for now.
For now.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, you want to say something about this?
Oga Sonny, my fellow analysts, viewers at home, the third force, alternative political movement, if we have to be sincere, is not an alternative movement at all. It has always been, and it is, an amalgamation of disgruntled political elements that have not been captured in the system. If you mention Patutome, he was a minister possibly before I was born or when I was a toddler. But over the years, he has not been captured. If you mention Obi Ezekwesili, Obi was a minister under President Olusegun Obasanjo. But over the years, he has become disgruntled because she has become disgruntled because she has not been captured. If you mention the son of Ahmadu Bello, that's an elite, for heaven's sake, whose father, once led this country, and then they want to repackage and rebrand themselves, possibly because the Sarakis have done it and other persons have done it. That is exactly what is going on. I love Comrade Adams Oshomole when he was a labor leader. That was when I was in school. We came out as children, or as young lads to support all his declarations at that time. But when he became governor, he did some good things. I'm not saying he did not do anything good. But towards the later end of his political career, he became more political than the politicians. That is exactly what is happening today. If you look at some of our civil society, I wouldn't want to mention names. Some of them have gone to join the government, and the activism and the activism that they were once known for are no longer there. So the truth of the matter, I have not seen anything different from what they've been doing before. There's been this amalgamation of disgruntled political elements that want to come and join in the shopping. That is what may have seen.
But that could just be jumping into conclusions.
I just told you what may have seen. What may have observed.
Exactly. So are you saying Chris is a disgruntled politician? Because you are very generalistic. You are very generalistic.
Sorry, just before you respond. There may be some good elements with genuine purpose.
So that's why there should have been some at the beginning of the statement, not saying they are all disgruntled elements.
Majority
waiting
of
to be
them,
captured.
those driving the process. He mentioned those driving. Let me even mention Osage Obayuana. He was a presidential candidate or a presidential aspirant at the time. But when Oshomole came in, he joined the Oshomole government. He left the third force or whatever it was and joined that.
No, but can you continue to stay? If you want to bring a change, can you continue to stay in the fringes?
No,
you can't. Okay, Chris, quickly.
What he's doing at that end is that he is naming legitimate processes and smearing them with negative words. The political processes are fluid. For instance, I know that he's been a member of 2 parties. He moved from one party to another party. Was it disgruntled?
I was disgruntled with the process. Yeah.
It's political formation. Well, how do we form political parties? By formation. So it wasn't wrong for people to come together, whether they would have been disappointed by the system or not. That doesn't make them disgruntled. They had come together to try, and but they failed in that process. That's what we are saying. And you cannot discourage such process. And by whatever qualification are you going to describe Bob Ezekwesili as disgruntled? I mean, she's a woman that has made her mark by any standards of judgment. She had attempted. Okay, you say I can run for presidency. Let me run for presidency. I mean, she did it. Buhari ran for four times before he eventually got it. So it's you're a politician. You must encourage such processes. What we are saying is that people should be honest, and when they are coming together, they should come together with a purpose and pursue it to a logical conclusion. They should not allow the system to embarrass them, intimidate them out. It's a system. And number 2, the TPAC, as I said, is civil society and labor. It's not a political party.
Okay, so let's leave it at that. Final word from you, if you call it to wrap.
For the issue of third force, what really broke my heart was the 2019 results from the general election, when I now gathered the votes of all other political parties. I went. I discovered that all of them put together still could not make a simple man.
Yeah.
He couldn't change. He didn't even shift.
No, but because the ab initio, the third force died on arrival. Yeah. So that's why I couldn't make any mark, because you saw that people were there for different reasons. In fact, a lot of them came in responding to the directives of their masters. So when they got there, that was the interest they were playing. And at the end of the day, you find them aligning here and there.
That is my point.
And so it fizzled that. But that is not enough to just jettison the whole idea.
Before Shedrack ran off, let me just quickly say this, that I am for an alternative platform. As a matter of fact, that was why
there is no way you can get an alternative platform
without some of the elites.
We're not apart from some of the elites. Without these people, some of these people that you call disgruntled, you are still going to. I mean, are these people going to? Are we going to bring angels from heaven?
No.
It's still within us. It's still the system. Are you get what I'm saying? So that's what it is. So, guys, let me thank you for creating the time to be here and ventilating your views on some of the issues that we talked about today. Engineer Sosan Morg, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, viewers at home.
Comrade Christopher Jekere, thanks again for being a part of the show. And Shedrack, thank you so much. Okay, it's the TMI Thursday. We'll take a short break. We'll be back on the concluding side of the show. Don't go away.